Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Audrey and today is day 17 of the Summer Scrappin Series. Only 4 more days left after today. Today my guest is Lisa Fonseca, and Lisa has a great whimsical style. She always uses bright colors and she has fun elements on her page. So go check out her channel linked below. So today I am using another Anchor cut file. Actually, I start with this cut file. It's the same cut file I used on an Anchor page I did back in July. And I just want the anchor. This time I'm going to make the anchor really, really big. And I want the anchor to be the main element on my page. And I have 4 smaller photos. So I make this anchor pretty big. And I'm going to draw in my photos here. My photos are about 2 by 3. I have 3 portrait oriented photos and 1 landscape oriented photo. I don't really take very many landscape oriented photos anymore. It's funny because I think now that most people take photos with their phones. Most phones take portrait oriented photos, but most cameras take landscape oriented photos. So my photography has definitely changed. So there's my 4 photos, there's my anchor. I actually end up using a different cut file. It's still an anchor, obviously, but this is from Paige Evans' shop, and I think it's a recent one, and I saw it pop up on her Facebook group. I'm like, I have to use that one. So I have cut this anchor cut file from craft cardstock. So I didn't use white because I'm going to go with kind of a darker background, and I don't want it to be super bright. My photos have a lot of blue in them from the sky and the water, so I really want the blue to stand out against these darker colors. So I'm planning on backing my anchor with this reddish paper you can see to the top left of my screen. The papers I'm using today are mostly from a really old October Afternoon collection called Treasure Hunt, and then this basic gray collection, another basic gray collection. I think it was just called Nautical. And I'm going to use that red paper up on the left there that you can see for to back my anchor. The rope on the anchor, I decided I was going to do something yellowish, something like kind of like a yellow brown, and I'm going to use some gold Heidi Swapp Color Shine, and I'm going to paint all of the edges of the rope portion of this file in the gold. So this is a fun way to kind of dress up your cut files, and if you don't like the bright stark contrast of a white border, to make it so that it kind of blends in with your background paper. Okay, so this is going to take me a little while. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I thought first about tracing the inside shapes and then backing it with and just cutting it out and putting it on the pattern paper, but I revert back to my traditional method of adding a cut file or adding pattern paper behind cut file, and that's just to glue on the cut file, stick it on a big piece of paper, and then trim around it once it dries. So there are actually several different sections here because the rope kind of intertwines around the anchor, so I have to cut it out in different sections. Again, I'm not going to show you this whole thing. I think I just show you this one part, and go from there. I love this color red. It's kind of an orangey red, but it's a really pretty mix with you can see I pulled out some navy papers in the top left, and I love this wood grain background. I have been hoarding it because obviously both of these collections are pretty old, so I've been hoarding them for a while, but it's time to use them. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to move on to new papers. So I'll just do these small sections, and then I'm going to go back and do the rope as well. And I fill in the rope with some scraps of kind of an orangey paper, a yellowish orangey paper that also came from Basic Gray. Okay, so there is the anchor all done. I love how that came out. I decided I wanted to do something in the background with like waves. I did not have a wave stamp. So I found the next best thing I could think of that kind of looked like waves. I don't know, it was this chevron pattern kind of. So I did it in some Distress Oxide there, and then I go back and try to use this white ink pad, and it's so dry. It doesn't even leave any ink on my fingers. So I try this one, and you can't really see it very well at all. So I just do it lightly around the page, but that was kind of a bust with the white. I've never had good luck with stamping with white on darker backgrounds. But I will go through and splatter with some white Dilutions paint, and I think even some of this paint as it dries kind of blends into the background too. So I like how that looks. I considered spraying, because I used a blue Distress Oxide ink, I considered spraying it a little bit to kind of make it smear a little, but I'm just going to leave it like it is. So there's my photos, my cluster of photos. I don't tend to use this many photos usually on a page, but I really love this, and I think the design is simple enough to allow the photos to stand out, and the cut file too. And I think it has a lot to do with the colors too, because the red and the orange, or the red and the yellow, are good contrast against the blue in the photos. So this is a piece of October afternoon paper. It has little like nautical flags on it. I'm going to do a little cluster in the top quarter with some nautical flags. And then I have a ton of embellishments from this Basic Gray collection. Oh yeah, it's not called Nautical, the Basic Gray collection. It's called Adrift. And I doubt you could find it anymore, anywhere. It's, I don't know, 2012, 2013 maybe. Maybe a little bit later than that, I don't know. I'm not going to do too many embellishments around the page because I feel like obviously the anchor is a big focal point, so I'm not going to do too much more, and that kind of makes it easy when you have one big element that's your focal point, and then your photos, and then you don't have to, just a few other embellishments here and there, and that's pretty much it. So more summer photos. We love to go on boat rides. The kids love to go on their boat ride, and it is so relaxing. Just and I wrote this in my journaling, like, you know, the hum of the engines, and sometimes the soft rolling of the waves, and the wind blowing in your hair, and the sound of the splashing water, and the occasional splash of water up into the boat. It's just so relaxing, and so we enjoy the boat rides. And the kids have driven a couple times this year. So actually these photos were last summer, but yeah, they've driven this summer too. Okay, so I'm going to bring in a few of kind of the aqua elements. There's a bit of aqua in some of the embellishments, like the little flags I cut in the top left, and I picked out a little anchor brad that I put in the compass rose down on the bottom. And I thought maybe I would bring in a piece of flare. I have this little bowl of flare, and I never really go through it. So I decided it was time to do that. And I have quite a few summer bits. I was surprised. But again, adding too many more things to this is going to really take away from the anchor design. So less is more in this case. So for these flags, I thought I wanted to run some thread through them to make them look like that they were, you know, on a string. Speaking of string, I fiddle with this bunch of string for like 10 minutes because I noticed I have 3 ends. How does that happen? It happens because I was lazy and cut in the middle at one point, and now I have 3 ends. Well, there should be 4 ends, right? If I cut somewhere in the middle. So yeah, it's just a big wad of string. So excuse me while I go untangle this all. Come back, get that all untangled. And I'm going to punch some tiny holes with my tiny puncher. I'm just going to punch 2 holes in the edge of each little flag. And then I'm going to thread the twine through each of them. And then I'm going to wrap the twine around. And I was debating how to adhere it to the page, like if I wanted to use double-sided tape, or I think I try a glue dot. Yeah, I go to get some glue dots here, and I try to put one on the string, and then in the end I just decide to use my tiny attacher stapler, I think, and I just end up stapling the string on after I tie the little bow. Okay, so that little cluster is done, and just like I did with the last Basic Gray collection I used, I had to peel off my protective cover on those clear acetate pieces. And now I'm going to start adhering some things down. So I'm going to use some pop dots off of these flags. And I definitely want to pop off my photos a little bit more, and my anchor too. So what I'm going to do is, because I didn't put any matting paper behind my photos, I'm going to just glue them all to a strip of scrap paper here so that they are one unit. So I have them kind of arranged together just so that they're easier to attach as a unit instead of individual photos. I add pop dots to the back of that whole thing and put that down. So you can see just a piece of paper there in the back of those photos. And I add a couple foam squares at the end. And then I add foam squares to my background where I know my photos are going to be, so that I don't overlap and add photos on top of the anchor too. And then I use clear glue on these acetate pieces because it dries clear and you can't see it at all. And I really don't think I do too much more here. Oh yeah, I got to do this title yet. I forgot. So for my title, I decided that I need to start using my stash of thickers more, because I have a ton of thickers and alphabet stickers. I mean, I've gotten so many kits in the past 2 or 3 years, and so every month I'm getting 2 or 3 new packages of thickers, and I have a ton. So I really want to start using, because I have been reverting to like prepackaged phrases or maybe die cuts to use as titles. So I really need to start using my thickers more. In the meantime, I'm just gluing down the rest of my things here. So I pulled out these stickers. They are, I think, from Studio Calico, and they're like a canvas, and you can actually spray them with mist to color them, but I just wanted to leave them white, and I thought that the white canvas was a nice kind of texture to go with this theme. I also loved that there are actually 2 sizes of alphas in this one set, so there's a larger, they're all lowercase letters, but one larger set of letters and one smaller set of letters. And then because I used that piece of bright, well, not bright blue, but that dark blue actually flare at the bottom that says Hello Summer, I felt like I needed something blue in the top left, something a little bit more blue. There's a lot of blue in my photos, but just something else little. So I decided to cut out a little heart, and I'm just going to freehand cut it here. That one's a little too small. It doesn't cover the opening of my letter O entirely, so I'm going to cut out a little heart and put it over that O. And then I will title this page, We Love Boat Rides. And there it is. So I gotta say, I love this page so much. It might be one of my favorite pages this series. And I think it's because it's not my traditional color scheme. I mean, I guess it is my traditional style in the sense that I do some type of ink and stuff in the back and a big cut file, but there's more photos on this page. I love the story, I love the colors, so I'm happy with how this came out. So there's lots of close-ups. You can see some of the details in that beautiful cut file, which I love so much. Plus, I love using up my older stash. It's good to make a dent in it. So that's it for today. Thanks so much for stopping by. Please be sure to check out Lisa's channel as well, and stay scrappy, friends. I'll see you tomorrow.